And within NATO, do you think it's time for the Europeans to have a different role within the alliance? Because that is what Macron is hinting at.
Well, I'm not sure he's hinting at that. I think what he's saying is that the European side needs to step up. We need to do more, for example, in terms of how much we spend, how we work together. Can we deal with, for example, defense procurement in a more, let's say, a successful way, and that we therefore also be able to economize on these spendings by working together and therefore having the economies of scale. All these issues he is addressing. I don't think that we should move into a sort of European NATO. I believe, and I think Macron believes this too, that the bond with America and Canada is crucial, not only for us, but also for the US and Canada. It's also in their forward defense interest that this part of the world stays stable.
And defense spending is always the elephant in the room. Today we had Trump saying that he's happy with the fact that countries are spending more. He's also, in a way, taking credit for it. But then he's also suggesting countries that do not spend the 2%, the U.S. is not going to pay for that. Maybe that's something that you could deal through with trade. We understand perhaps he's hinting at tariffs. Is that the right way to go about this?
Well, I haven't heard these latest comments, but in general, I would agree with him that we have to spend more. We cannot have the American side of NATO being about 50% of NATO economy, them spending 75% of the full NATO bill, whilst the rest of NATO, including Canada, and the European side is only spending 25%, whilst we handle with the other 50% of NATO economy. So he's right there. The pledge we made in Wales, the Welsh pledge, was that we would move towards the 2%, step by step, before 2024. And when you look at the numbers now, I heard 130 billion extra spent on the non-US side of NATO since 2016 is an incredible number. It's huge.
And with regards to your country, you commit to that figure? Because Trump would say the Netherlands is a rich country.
We are, and he is completely right that he also should move to the 2%. We are spending billions and billions more. We are buying over 10 billion on new defense equipment, spending billions and billions more in terms of our overall defense spending. Our economy is also growing at a high pace, so we have to keep track also with the size of the economy, but it is still our aim to achieve the Welsh target in 2024.
And now let's talk about Russia, because the conversation around Russia is changing. We're hearing more voices that say isolating Russia is serving no purpose. It's time to revisit that situation. Do you agree with that? Perhaps the situation needs to be more normal?
I would say let's not be naive about Russia. They have occupied the Crimea. They have interfered in eastern Ukraine. Other things are happening, so let's not be naive. At the same time, I believe that next to pressure, we also should always seek the dialogue with the Russians. We cannot just leave the phone ringing when they try to connect to us. So yes, we should have the dialogue, but it is pressure first, dialogue second.
And Erdogan of Turkey is taking a lot of heat going into the summit because of that Russian equipment that he is buying. NATO is saying this is totally incompatible. What do you think is going to happen there? Because he is saying it's my decision.
I know that he's saying that. I agree with the NATO Secretary General and others that buying this crucial defense equipment from the Russian side is not a wise decision. So I agree there with my other NATO colleagues that this is not a wise decision by the Turkish government. And of course we have to deal with this. But then, over the last 70 years, we always have had these differences. We always have been able to hammer them out. And it is better to have them on the table than to just have them somewhat simmering somewhere without being debated.
And just very quickly, if Erdogan does decide to continue with the S-400 and he continues to test that, what happens next? Because it's clearly an act of defiance. Yes,
well, it's clear that already the Americans have said that means that we will not sell a particular defense gear into Turkey. So that has a direct consequence.
So there will be consequences, that's what you think?
Well, at the moment, they're there because of the American reaction to this. And as a NATO alliance, we also have to deal with this. But more in general, I'm happy that we can at least discuss these issues on the table without having them somewhere in the air not being debated.